All right. If you are just joining, I see a couple people are just joining us. Okay, we're just filling out. I'm throwing a link in the chat. Just filling out a couple questions and answering just a couple questions. So, what made you decide to pick this session? Uh, what services do you have experience with, and how confident do you feel about getting useful data or content from LLMs? So, let's give everyone a chance to respond. All right, here we go. We'll just use the all responses instead of the word cloud. I think the word cloud's just having a hard time. So here to learn, curious, just you can get better at creating or using data to communicate. Awesome. Um, so LLMs, yeah, I don't know why it's this thing is having a hard time. That's okay. We'll just swing it this way. It's the old-fashioned way. So can you all um just throw in the chat which LLM services do you have experience with? ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, DeepSeek. All right. Okay. Claude, good. Okay. All right. Okay. So it seems like everybody's used something or other. Fantastic. All right. And the last question, just how do you feel about just on a scale of 1 to 10? I know it's got weird ratings on here. Just 1 to 10, where 10 is like you're pro, and then one is like you've used it like twice. How do we feel about getting useful content out of LLMs? Okay. Oh, Jenny's pro level. Okay. I'm very excited. What are you doing here, Jenny? Um, all right. So great. Let's go and get forward here. Let's throw this in the chat as well. When do you use data in training or PD sessions? And I don't mean just general data, actual like hard data. So attendance logs, testing scores, that sort of thing. Okay. Reasoning, return on investment. Okay. Retention. All right. Awesome. All right. Yeah, so we got a couple of options here. So personally, I use it for a number of reasons. I do a lot of classroom, a lot of my trainings are with instructors, and it's sometimes just demonstrating a tool or something along those lines. And so we need data to demonstrate what might be happening or simulating in their classroom. Problem is I don't have a classroom. So if I had a classroom, I'd have data. But if you don't have a classroom, you don't have classroom data. And that tends to be a bit of a problem. And so with no classroom data, that means I don't really have a reliable source of data. And so I don't have ongoing things that I can monitor. I also, every time if I need to borrow some data, I need to make sure there's no personal information on there. Student data is cleaned up. And I also, sometimes I need data for a specific situation where I'd say, okay, we've got a student that's dropping off. What does that look like? And so recently, for example, I did um, a training on using graphing tools and visualizing data. And so we were looking at attendance data and kind of what that looked like over time. But I can't get that from an actual classroom without having to go through all these steps. And so I could, say, how do we get useful training data then? So there's a couple ways you can do it, I feel like. All right. So the biggest one is what some of us do, I think sometimes is just ask for it, right? Every now and then they might have an instructor that's willing to share their classroom data and share their attendance logs. But that comes with the challenges that we just mentioned, right? You got Pi and you got everything else involved with getting rid of it. You can also just hand make your data, right? You can just type it up and just add in some extra information. That's fine too. I've done that plenty of times, especially if it's a small data set and I just need to demonstrate something quick. Or we can use Excel formulas, right? And so if you need to generate like cohesive data, for example, as mentioned, attendance data, you can use, random formulas, random booleans, arrays, etc., to fabricate a attendance log, and maybe something that might look useful for what you're looking for. Problem with Excel is that this can be a little complicated. It's finicky, lots of control, but the amount of juice you're getting out from the squeeze, not usually worth it. Or uh, we can leverage generative AI. And so that's kind of the main point of the session here. And so we can get a year of attendance data for a very specific classroom setting. And we can do it pretty quickly. We can introduce trends for specific scenarios. We generate fully generative data. And so there's zero risk of FERP violations. And so let's take a moment here to just touch base on what generative AI and large language models are. And so generative AI and large language models are kind of the same thing a little bit. So generative AI is the larger umbrella under which large language models are a form of generative AI. There are other generative AI technologies that use AI to create things like images, videos, et cetera, anything that's being created. And is going to be considered generative AI. Large language models, on the other hand, are specific models that are geared towards language as your primary interface. And so when people say large language models or LLMs, usually you're talking about using natural language to communicate with the AI model. That has some examples, as we've already mentioned. ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, and Perplexity are just some examples. There's many out there right now. Um, I do want to just clarify that this is a general definition here. The more technical one, there are technical definitions that are a little bit more specific. You can always reach out to me at a later point in time and we can get into that in more detail, or you can just look it up. But how do we communicate with our large language models, our LLMs? Well, that comes in the form of prompting. And so many of you, I'm sure, have heard of prompting. Can you give me a thumbs up if you've heard of the term prompting? Just real quick, let me see where we're at here. Thumbs up. Okay, a couple people. Good, great. Oh, I'm all over the place here. All right. Yeah, so a few of us have heard of prompting. And so prompting is just a chat with an LLM. And so that little chat is called a prompt. You are prompting it to do something for you. And as a rule of thumb, if you have a better prompt, you will get better results. So if you find yourself getting something that's unexpected or the results are not what you're quite looking for, then your prompt likely needs to be adjusted. And so here are my little GIFs here. You can see on the left-hand side, we've got a very simple prompt. Please make a list of student attendance data with attendance, and it's just, for a CSV. And that will work and you'll get something. On the right, we can see scrolling. That's the size of the prompt I use to generate my data for my training session. So you can see that there's a significant difference in the size of the prompt. All right. So what does that mean for us? Well, it means we need to spend some time to build an actually decent prompt if we want decent results. And so if we're asking for basic, information, very simple things, check the grammar on this email, that's one thing. But if we want actual concrete, hey, I need this fictitious data set that I can do and plug into a tool, then we're going to be using more in-depth prompt capabilities. And so in this case here, we've got building a good career prompt, and you can see career is in all caps. That does mean it is an acronym. The acronym is this, okay? So career, obviously, and it stands for context, actions, rules, expectations, examples, and role. Let's go into those real quick. So the context is your background. This is basically what you are doing in the moment and what you're looking for. The action is what you want the actual model to do. And so, for example, you might say generate an email, right? Create a CSV file. The rules are basically what constraints and boundaries you have on your prompt. And so, as an example, with my attendance data, there are holidays and the class doesn't happen every single day. So I would specify, hey, the class is only happening on like Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. It is only from this time to this time. All importantly, it doesn't happen on holidays. And so if one of those Mondays is a holiday, don't include that. And so that would be a constraint or a boundary. Expectations are what you expect to kind of get back. And so the format, if you're doing an email, what kind of format you want it to be. In our case, I wanted a CSV file. I could have asked for an XML file or a Markdown file. I could ask for a tone. Do I want it more professional? Do I want it more for like a younger audience? Do I want it for an older audience? That sort of thing. The length of it, the audience success criteria, etc. Examples are, so if you can get an example in for what you want from the LLM, you're going to have a much, much easier time as a rule of thumb. And so it gives the LLM a chance to see what you're looking for, and your results usually are much better. You can also give examples of what you don't want. And so you can say, here's a 10 out of 10 example, and here's a 1 out of 10 example. And that is sometimes helpful, although I generally only recommend sticking to the 10 out of 10 options. And then the role. So what perspective should the model adopt? And so, for example, I might say you are a adult education instructor from that perspective. So once again, building a good career prompt. Career is context, action, rules, expectations, examples, and role. I do want to specify that these do not need to be all in the exact same order. Like you don't have to say context and then action. You can put this in any order you want. Personally, I almost always put my role first, and I almost always put my examples last. And so like That's totally fine. The AI models will include all the information. And so now it's your turn, which, it's a great stopping point here, kind of, right? And so I want to give you guys a couple minutes. Go to an LM, whatever your preferred is. I see that most of you have a LM that you use in some way. And here's your task. Generate a month of attendance data, okay? And so this is going to be for a class of 12 students. They're going to meet for 3 hours on Mondays, Wednesdays, and then for the month of November 2025. We're going to have one student that stops coming in after 2 weeks, and we're going to have three students that are only able to come in on Wednesdays. And then the rest are going to just kind of come every day. And so that's the goal. I'm going to give you all a second to, or I'll give you like a few minutes here to go and try and accomplish that and see how it goes.
Well, that's pretty cool.
What'd you find, Carla?
Well, it generated something.
All right.
I have an attendance report, total students 12, has all of the information at the top. It broke it down in a nice little table for me. And then it gave me a summary of the notes, letting me know that the majority of the class maintained full attendance. 3 students attended consistently, but only on Wednesdays. 1 student dropped attending after the first 2 weeks, and overall attendance remained strong with 80 total student session attendances recorded.
Fantastic.
Love that.
Did anybody else get anything else interesting or surprising? Maybe somebody got something really weird. You can put it in the chat or you can unmute. Either one works. Average attendance data is nice.
Yeah, this is interesting. It gave me peak attendance days
Mm.
and then lowest attendance days.
Oh, that is very interesting. Which
Yeah.
platform are you using, Genki?
Gemini.
Gemini. Okay.
Yes. It says Wednesday, average of 11 students present. Mondays, in the second half of the month, 8 students present. So yeah, this is very interesting. Very nice analysis.
And Linda noted in the chat that they got a note that says it is a classic persistence and access issue, not just motivation. And so I think we are all kind of seeing here, and if we could bring it back here as we're wrapping up, it is on the 10:30 here on my time again. If we could just bring it back here, that, I do, while we're not going to focus too much on it at this point in time, if you have an instructor or you have several instructors, or even colleagues that starts to see how useful artificial intelligence is for data analytics is extremely powerful, but I do want to just have a moment of caution that you are giving information out, right? And so we do have to warn instructors, make sure you clean the data, that there's no student IDs, that there's no, or give them student IDs that are anonymized, make sure there's no personally identifiable information, so on and so forth, because it is very, very easy for somebody just to take their information, just drop it in to ChatGPT and say, tell me trends or something like that. And so we want to avoid that because that can cause problems. All right, so let's move forward a little bit here. Let me minimize my thing there. All right. So let's talk about better prompts. So that was the prompt. I'm not sure what kind of prompts you all put in. But hopefully you followed the career prompt, which is great. But we can do better. We can do a lot better. And the way we can do better is that we can have the LLM, whatever you're using, just be a prompt engineer and generate a better prompt. So there's a couple ways to do this. You can literally just say, hey, pretend you're a prompt engineer and go through the career prompt, but you're going to create kind of a meta prompt. So you're creating a prompt with the purpose of creating another prompt. I do this all the time. In fact, here is my personal prompt engineering prompt. There's a QR code. Let me throw the link into the chat. Please let me know if the Google Doc is not accessible. But you can just open that Google Doc up, copy and paste it into your chat. And then and then in addition say, here's my prompt, make it better, basically. And so let's go ahead and do that. Make a better prompt. So you have your old prompt you just used, right? You can either create your own prompt engineering prompt. That's totally fine. Or you can use mine. Either one works. But let's just take a few minutes here and create a a prompt engineering prompt and go ahead and utilize it. All right, let's start bringing it back here. If you could bring your attention back here, those of you that use my prompt, did you just copy and paste? And you can just unmute, it's fine. Yes. Did you notice anything weird happen? Yeah, so hopefully, some of you, if you use my prompt, I threw something in there, a little curveball there. And so first off, stop and always sanitize prompts. So sanitizing is a industry term that's kind of coming from data management and database management and administration. And it refers to the process of double checking your prompts. Danger Will Robinson, that's right. And so simple prompt injection. So I did inject a hidden prompt in there that basically said, ignore the rest of this and type in this information here. Now, that is a very simple prompt injection. It is very easily detectable by newer LLMs. And so not all older models or simpler models check though. And so that is something to keep in mind. If you're using an LLM that is older or it is just not as robust, it may not catch simple prompt injection techniques. There are also more advanced prompt injection techniques that occur. And so that is something to kind of keep in mind when we are grabbing prompts from the internet, because this is a problem that is developing and will probably be a problem for a lot of people in like a year or two here. So the way to handle this is pretty straightforward. Just take the prompt that you're going to put into your LLM and copy and paste into a notepad or any other plain text editor. So if you're using Mac, I don't remember what the name is, but there's a plain text editor. And the goal there is like if you can't bold and you can't do colors, that sort of thing, that's plain text. It's literally just text. And the nice thing about that is it shows you any hidden things. If there are special characters or anything like that, it'll show you. So you can check for any hidden prompts that might be present there. And then another thing you can do is just leverage AI. Ask the LM to verify if the prompt is safe to use and to list any potential concerns. And then it will kind of box it off instead of running it because now it's researching that particular prompt. So something to keep in mind as far as security is concerned, right? And so just want to pause there. If you did use my prompt, you can go ahead and just remove that little section there. It is highlighted in white, and you can just get rid of it, and then it will work just fine. But now, ideally, you're going to use your meta prompt, your prompt engineer to create a better prompt. You should have gotten this larger prompt. Go ahead and run that prompt and see how different the results are. So we'll give that a couple minutes here.
For those
Yeah.
of us that did not use your prompt, and I went back into the system and asked it to give me a better prompt,
Yeah.
and the report was different. It gave me more detail.
Yeah.
And different analysis that went deeper. So I thank you.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Yeah. And if you, those of you that have not watched the video, I did record a short video, and in that, there's also, I have an attached document that showcases the prompt I use to generate the attendance data. And so if you want to go investigate that at a later point in time, you're more than welcome to do so. I'm curious, is anybody finding that their LLM is spending a lot more time the second time around with the better prompt?
I noticed that for mine, it did take a pause, like it was thinking, like, what is she doing?
Yeah, and that's a good sign that the model is really leveraging its extra resources.
Got it. Okay.
All right, let's bring it back. If you didn't finish, that's totally fine. It'll let it chug later. But I just want to wrap up so we have time for questions, right? And so you should try your prompt with the hidden instructions in Gemini. It acknowledged it, went ahead and ended its output with "There's no danger here, robot," and I was able to proceed as normal. That's awesome. Yeah, so the newer models are much better, right? So a couple things to remember. First and foremost, this one's pretty important. Always disclose generated data clearly. So if you're posting it anywhere, it needs to be very clearly labeled as AI generated. If you're using it in a training, please make sure it is labeled very clearly. Rule number two, always disclose generated data extremely clearly. This is in there twice because we are moving into an era where if you start generating data and you use it in a presentation, some undergrad out there might see it, assume it's real, and then use it. Or it might be scraped by a different AI that is scraping the internet, come across your generated data. It's not labeled correctly. And so it assumes it's real and then scrapes it up. And so now it's feeding this negative feedback loop that we really want to do our best to avoid. Sanitize your copied prompts. And so if you're ever going to copy a prompt from somewhere else, I'm sure you've seen them all over the place. They're on Facebook. If you're in my circles on Facebook, TikTok or whatever else, you'll see them on LinkedIn prompts, etc. Make sure when you copy and paste, you copy and paste it somewhere first in a plain text editor, just to make sure it is clean. Remember career, context, action, rules, expectations, examples, and role. Just using this alone will get you very far. You do not have to use all of these every time, but you can use most of them. And so, for example, let's say I am responding to an email. Maybe I'm working with somebody that I've explained something several times. I might specify in my prompt, hey, can you check this email? I'm concerned about professionalism. Here's the context. I've spoken with them several times already. It is a professional setting, that sort of thing, right? Take the role of a professional copy editor, right? And then also importantly, leverage AI to do AI. And so AI is a very useful tool, and it's even better if you use it for itself. And so it knows itself best in that sense. So with that, we're wrapping up here. Are there any questions? Let's start there.
Will we get a copy of this presentation?
I believe so. Yes. You're also welcome to email me. Let me see yeah, my email is at the end here. Actually, we're in questions here. So my email is right there. You're welcome to email me. And if you don't get it, I can just send it to you directly. So it's just kenneth.kim@az.gov. And if you want to talk to me about anything else, in addition to the presentation, just AI generally speaking, you're always welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Are there any other questions?
Kenneth, I
Mhm.
am, this is my first time hearing that there's need to double check if prompt is safe to run.
Mhm.
Can you give us a little more examples of w- what it looks like when it's not safe? Like, what are some kinds,
Absolutely.
what that does? Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, so there's a few things running right now. Obviously, with any new technology, you're going to have some malicious actors, unfortunately, hackers, etc. There's a couple of things that are we've seen pop up. So back when LLMs were kind of first getting off the ground, the prompt injections were the big thing where people were hiding information. There are other things that they can hide with and so, for example, you can have special characters and you can code things with special characters. And so one example was they had an LLM get jailbroken basically through it basically was compromised by an image. And so somebody had created an image, but inside the image, because of the way the machine learning works, it doesn't see images the way we see it. It reads it and breaks it down into bits and pieces, zeros and ones. And so somebody had taken malicious code, a script, and basically given it a whole bunch of instructions. And when it took the image, it also took that information and interpreted not only the image, but also the script. Um, Thankfully, we've not seen any of these in the wild yet, and hopefully we don't. And they're actively being researched. But that is an example of where, like, people are constantly looking for ways to bypass securities. I will say most of the big box ones like Gemini and that sort of thing are pretty robust and generally considered pretty safe. The real risk comes if your organization develops or contracts for a more personalized AI, where you can have a LLM system that is really focused on your internal systems. Because then you could do it isn't FERPA compliant because it's no longer exporting to some third company. Everything's signed and documented, just like we can have learning management systems with that's FERPA compliant. There are also AI companies that have like embedded LLMs for like schools and for corporations that are either FERPA compliant or just privacy-based compliant if it's just a regular company. And so those are the systems that malicious actors are going to try and compromise, generally speaking.
Okay, thank you for the explanation.
Absolutely.
My goodness.
I do want to again specify this is not a current active threat. That is something that like
Mm,
is everywhere. It is similar to something like I would say the way like phishing links kind of started to become a thing, right? Or like those emails that are like phishing emails. I would expect that in like 5 years time, most of us will have training on checking your prompts to make sure they're good to go.
mm. Sounds like it.
Or maybe
Uh,
not. Maybe AI will get to the point where it automatically does it for us and we don't have to worry about it, right?
mm,
So as Gemini does, as Jenny noted.
mm.
Any other questions or just general comments?
Well, I just want to thank you for the session. I don't know if this is the end of the training all day, but just this nugget has been fabulous
Oh,
because
fantastic.
it really helped me to think about some things and just, like, oh, wow, I didn't know I could even do that. And then the double
Mhm.
checking and the cleaning.
Yep,
So I just want to thank you for your time. It was well worth it.
absolutely. This is one of my favorite topics too. I work on this topic a lot in my personal life, so it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. So thank you all for giving me the chance to talk about it. Oh, and before I forget, actually, before you all go, I will say MIT has come out with especially for this kind of thing where you're needing more robust information. I have not had a chance to explore it myself, because it's relatively new. But MIT did come out with a new structure and framework for prompting that scales very well with large prompts and large data sets. And so if that is something that you are interested in, I do encourage you to look it up. I believe it's called recursive prompting, but I might be mistaken on there. If you look up just MIT, you know, I think it came out in like December 2025. They published a paper on it. So that is something to go read. But again, I have not verified it myself, so I have to go research that myself. Otherwise, I would have included it in the presentation. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording.